All right, I think we're live here. Cool. Well, welcome to everyone on the call. Thanks for tuning in here. We've got Miles and Ryan from the Decentral Games team with us today. I think we can get things started with a round of introductions from all of us. Miles or Ryan, I don't know. Do you guys want to go first?
Yeah, thanks for having us. Really appreciate it. And thanks for everyone for tuning in. I'm Miles, co-founder and CEO of Decentral Games. We build ice poker as the first play and earn poker game in the metaverse. We populate various venues in Decentraland and account for, upwards of 60% of the DAU there. So yeah, really looking forward to diving in a bit more in detail today on this call.
Great, and Ryan here, Chief Operating Officer, Decentral Games, background in economics and math, worked for some big companies like Amazon and Credit Karma, and only made the move full-time to Web3 back in 2020. So highly encourage anyone considering it to make the jump. And thanks for having us.
Of course. Quick question before we get to our end. What made you guys kind of start Decentral Games? Just some quick background, I guess.
So we started Decentral Games kind of in the midst of a bear market. It was in early 2019. After having been a part of the Decentraland community, been pretty early there, participating in the land sales, and we were just very bullish on the metaverse back then, and we felt that it created a token use case that was very warranted at the time when a lot of token use cases were not really valid. And we felt that if we were to establish ourselves as kind of a main application within the metaverse, we'd benefit from just like the general adoption of the metaverse, which we've kind of seen, and just position ourselves for a huge influx of users, as more and more people kind of explored it. And so, yeah, it just started very simple with building kind of just straightforward games like slots, roulette, blackjack, backgammon. Didn't really find the product market fit until we released our ice poker game, with a kind of play and earn token model. So yeah, that's basically the general overview, I'd say.
Fantastic. So on my side, my name is Mihai. I'm an analyst with Messari. I'm based out of Zurich, Switzerland, and together with my colleague Jerry, we have co-authored the Decentral Games quarterly. Over to you, Jerry.
Sweet. Well, thanks for the introduction, Mihai, and another welcome to everyone on this call. I think we can kind of jump into it. And Ethan, if you want to share your screen, we've got like a presentation to kind of go along with our conversation here. I think, like I said, just diving straight in, I think a lot of people here are kind of curious about the tokenomics of the game. Ryan, something that you mentioned to us a little while back is the game is really modeled similarly to Axie Infinity, the play to earn model. And as we know, it is a very successful model. Axie Infinity became really big, very prominent globally. But at the same time, I think there are some concerns about, well, how does Axie Infinity really build kind of a sustainable token model, things like that. Miles, some of the things that you were talking about a little bit earlier in the introduction as well, right? And so just high level, and I think as many people would be interested to know, like, how do you guys think about the sustainability of both your tokens, right? Like ICE token and your DG token, how those kind of operate and like what the long-term outlook looks like for your vision of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Can comment there. So this was about a year ago now, maybe a little less, but Axie Infinity was really taking off. Saw the success of play to earn as a user acquisition model. So while a lot of these large crypto protocols had like 10, 20,000 users, they were boasting 1 million, 2 million people onboarded on crypto. And we came at this from, I think, the reverse perspective of a lot of the play and earn games coming to market, which is that we had been building a game for the last year, which was Texas Hold'em style poker in the metaverse. It's in 3D, social, based on the Unity backend. So we had this fun game that we could then apply the economics to. It started pouring into the economics that Axie designed around the game, and definitely saw, and they were also pretty transparent about the fact that this breeding model is problematic because if you allow people to sort of exponentially mint new NFTs into your ecosystem, you're burning, SLP, but creating a lot of these additional assets. So one thing that we built in was an upgrade or vertical progression model. So just taking a step back onto the economics, it is similar that you either need to buy an NFT that's decentral and wearable. So we launched them in sets of 5. These are outfits that you wear in the metaverse. And then if you buy one or you have one delegated to you, then you get a daily allotment of chips. These chips are not redeemable for anything. They refresh at midnight. And then if you think about like Axie's challenges, depending on the stamina that you have, you're able to complete these different challenges. You get different amounts of chips based on how many wearables you're wearing, and then you're rewarded based on how you did at poker that day. So if you took your 3,000 chips to 6,000 chips, you earned a lot more ice than if you lost all 3,000 chips that day. There's also a time-based component where people need to win a certain number of hands, so that we guarantee someone doesn't just come in, play one hand, finish in the 50th percentile. But then people are earning ice, but people also spend ice, then upgrading their wearables, which makes them cooler, flashier items that they can boast and show off in the metaverse. And so that's the burning mechanism, is the upgrade progression rather than minting new items with the ice that's burning there. And then finally, we built delegation into our platform because we saw that on average, Axie was losing around 10% of that SLP to these guild management tools, and that it was introducing a third party between the NFT owner and the delegated player that's extracting some value. People can manage their own guild directly on the decentralized game. I guess would leave it there as an introduction. Miles, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, that's a great overview of kind of our game mechanics currently. It also is worth adding, we are constantly trying to add additional utility and sinks in place in the ecosystem for ICE. One of the things that we're most excited about right now is just a tournament mode. We're just going to be rolling out just simple single table sin goes in the metaverse that will act as a massive, ICE sink for the ecosystem. We briefly kind of released a bit of info on this, but generally, we kind of view like the existing ice poker game, which is scaled to over 10,000 DAU in the metaverse, as just kind of a base layer of getting people actually into the metaverse, something that not many folks have been able to do yet. And so building kind of these other game modes on top of just the general ice poker SNG, and many in the future, many multi-table tournaments. We want to make it as skill-based as possible, act as these massive ice sinks for the ecosystem, and just make it fun. So yeah, really excited to get those new game modes out. We've been diving in, following our deployment of assigned seating last week and stabilization of assigned seating last week. So yeah, that's I think we're in a really lucrative position from a play and earn standpoint, just given the fact that people already are familiar with spending, kind of whether it's tokens or cash or whatever on the game of poker, and so kind of putting it into an angle for a product was a bit easier for us, I would say, than most play and earn games, as kind of the narrative shifts towards like more token burns and token utility as opposed to just rewards. So yeah, looking forward to getting those new game modes live as soon as possible.
Gotcha. Yeah, Ryan, like you bring up the Axie comparison, and I think one of the things that people will say about Axie is it is a very kind of like rudimentary, elementary game. And if you grow up or you grew up playing AAA rated kind of live action, high graphics games, they're going to be really, it's a really difficult transition to move from that type of game to like a Pokemon light card based game. And so, I mean, we mentioned this report, but kind of bringing poker into the fold, I think in that way is really smart because a lot of people do play poker. It is a very popular game, popular card based game. So it's a good kind of mode for where we are now with the era of blockchain games.
Yeah.
And then,
sorry, go on.
no, Ryan, please.
I was going to say, yes, 100% agree. Zynga Poker has 20 million monthly actives who play under this premium model where they're either playing for free and not earning, or they're even paying to climb the ranks for free. So people are familiar with poker, the fun game that many people play without earning. And just to add on to Miles' point as well, I brought up the upgrade model versus the breeding model, but I think we completely recognize that no one token sync is like the token sync that's going to burn all the tokens that are emitted. Like we have advertising deals in ICE rolling out in ICE. Activations of wearables are done in ICE. We're selling accessory items that don't emit ICE. We're talking about emotes and then Miles mentioned tournament mode. And I think that as these game economies build out and scale, you're going to see that a sustainable economy has many parts. It's not just like an in-out where tokens are earned this one way and then they're burned this other way, and we hope that that works one-to-one on those two items. You're going to have many different use cases to hold and to upgrade via the token to get to a sustainable economy.
Perhaps in terms of monetization strategy for Decentral Games, we were wondering what that is for the longer term. So currently we've seen that 93% of your revenue is out of minting of new NFTs and also of upgrades, in-game upgrades. And we were wondering whether these revenue streams will shift over time. So what is your take there?
Yeah, on top of that, for our revenue, we bring in quite a bit of revenue just from secondary sales. So right now, all these secondary sales are carried out on OpenSea. For those, we charge a 5% fee. So that's been able to fill the treasury, governed by DG token holders with ETH. Kind of moving forward, we do expect that to grow as we continue expanding our NFT supply in the future. But yeah, right now we're really just focused on sustainability and stabilizing the ecosystem. I know a lot of play and earn games have kind of been experiencing slight recessions recently, and so right now our main focus is really just driving stability to the ICE economy. That being said, I do think it is substantial, the amount of ETH that we bring into the treasury each month from the secondary sales. So one of our biggest initiatives from a product standpoint and engineering standpoint is building our own ecosystem marketplace. So kind of moving our secondary sales from OpenSea, which where they currently are, onto our site, even offering transactions with ICE as well. So we do expect that to both add a lot of ICE utility in general. So people are transacting and holding ICE to participate in the ecosystem from the secondary sales standpoint, but then also charging a fee on that marketplace that's not entirely being extracted by, or partially being extracted by OpenSea. So do expect that to be a lot more efficient from an ecosystem standpoint. But yeah, to answer your question, in terms of the model for revenue, kind of long term, for the treasury, the Decentral Games treasury is mainly just these fees for secondary sales.
Longer term,
during a growth phase, the majority of our revenue will come from selling these items, where the DG DAO gets 100% of that revenue versus 4.9% of the secondary revenue. But as the economy matures, the velocity of these wearables being traded, upgraded, activated is going to make a big difference. So at scale, we would expect that to grow roughly proportionally to the number of items. But while we're growing, I think the mints will be, perhaps not 90% of revenue, but the majority of revenue.
Longer term, do you see some sort of value accrual to DG potentially as like purely a governance token right now? But I guess like this is always a big question kind of in the crypto ecosystem.
Yeah, definitely. So right now, the DG token holders as a governance token governs a little over 40 million of assets in our treasury. You can view it on our website. And so that treasury is fed primarily, as Ryan outlined, right now by mint proceeds when we do ETH mints, as well as the secondary sale volume that is paid in like the royalties. So yeah, that accrual has been nice. We've passed various governance proposals to allocate funds from mints to LPing. We provide all of the LPs for DG and ICE pairs from our treasury. And we look forward to kind of adding more and more initiatives, even around marketing or growth or user acquisition in the future from those funds. But yeah, the accrual is directly to the treasury, which is governed by the DG token holders. So yes, we our aim is to accrue value there.
Gotcha.
Yes, if your question is what is the relationship between the value of the treasury and the market cap of the token, that's above my pay grade. I don't know how people are valuing the governance token.
Right.
Revenue or downside.
Yeah, I think it's kind of a question that I guess a lot of people don't know the answer to right now because of how tokens are categorized. I suppose 5-10 years from now, you could see like dividends more closer to kind of traditional equities, or this is the whole like securitization of tokens and what that might mean. That's beyond all of us, right? That's up for regulatory policy. But just kind of curious if as to how projects are kind of thinking about that right now. Right. We can go to, I think, kind of some of the daily average metrics here if we want to jump to the next slide, Ethan.
Absolutely. So here we're able to see a very beautiful progression in terms of number of daily active users reaching close to 12,000 recently. And here we were wondering that the amount of players is pretty much bound to the number of NFTs that are minted. And we counted them together and we came to the number of 14,000. So here we were wondering if we have like 12,000 daily active users that require at least one NFT in order to be able to play. What would be a fair way to compute an utilization metric here, an utilization ratio? Would that be dividing the 12K daily active users by the total amount of NFTs, which is 14K? Is that a fair metric, or would you actually measure it differently?
For the utilization of the NFTs, it's a bit, there's another layer in there in that these wearables are actually stackable. And so you can actually wear up to 5 different wearables at the same time. This gives you a larger bonus. And we've actually increased these bonuses recently with a governance proposal. And so, yeah, Ryan can kind of dive into a bit more detail on the utilization rate that we have with those. But yeah, so some players obviously play with 2, 3, 4, up to 5 wearables, and so the DAU actually could be slightly lower than the actual total amount of wearables being utilized.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add there. Just that that's about right. Particularly if you look at Q1, that the majority of players are playing with one wearable. Certainly, if there's 12,000 DAU and 14,500 wearables, but we've actually seen stacking increase, and we've continued to incentivize that as a behavior that could go into more detail about why we think that's good for the ecosystem. But yes, I would say the utilization rate is a little higher than that because not everyone is playing with one, but not a ton higher. I see people in the chat are mentioning that I have 11 wearables stacked on 3 delegates. Thanks, Josh. And that's been a more recent trend. Whereas it was more like 1-to-1 last quarter.
Gotcha. That makes sense. Curious question that I have just for me is in terms of Web3 games, especially something like Ice Poker, where a lot of Ice rewards are distributed if you complete daily challenges or certain objectives. Do you guys have any issue with bots? Have you kind of seen that? If like, for example, you check in and you're able to kind of be eligible for certain rewards, like are bots able to go and do that, or have you thought about this problem?
Yeah, it's definitely been discussed in pretty, to a certain extent in our community. In terms of bots in Decentral, it's a bit tough to code a bot to navigate in the 3D environment, sit at a table, and click on the 3D buttons to play the game. The main issue we had was just kind of people multi-accounting, but manually multi-accounting. We've added measures in place to prevent against this. Right now, we only allow one account per user, and so luckily we haven't really had to deal with too many bots. That's going to be a main focus as we roll out our mobile products and kind of our web-based 2D products. Obviously, that'll be a bit more of an attack vector there. So we are going to be taking measures to prevent that a bit more seriously from that product standpoint. But that being said, I think with our current product, it is a bit tough to bot just given the environment of the game.
Yeah, but also want to address this as people in the chat are calling out, and as you see on that chart, that this was a major initiative last quarter to assign seats so that someone with multiple tabs open, multiple VPNs is not sitting with multiple accounts at a single table. We actually assign a seat at a table when you walk in. That flow is challenging in 3D virtual worlds to come in and say, for this user, you need to go sit at this table in space. But that's now out. And there are still remaining attack vectors. I think across games, this will continue to be a really important point. But we'll also, as Miles mentioned, have a lot more control over the experience within the mobile version, which we're taking the opposite route of existing play and earn games, right? Everyone else has a browser-based 2D, either mobile or tablet version. We're expanding in where we started 3 years ago, in Decentraland, that other virtual world, and also launching mobile over the coming months. We're really excited about that.
Right. In reference to assigned seating here, and this dip, it's a very temporary thing. It seems like it was just kind of like a 1 or 2 day situation. But what was kind of the factor here that caused daily average user count to go down? Was it just like inability to log in, or just like unfamiliarity with the change? Any kind of insight there?
Yeah, so assigned seating is definitely a feature that we do think we should have implemented a lot sooner than we did, just given the attack vector of folks being able to collude. But that being said, we tried to get it live about a month ago initially, and there were issues with scale. Like we tested with our QA team to a large extent with no issues, even tested with our beta testing community, 40, 50, 60 amount of users at the time with no issues. And we experienced these issues once we went to production, had 1,500 daily active concurrent players right there playing and using the feature. And so we had to rethink kind of the architecture of it because clearly as we released it, back at the end of March, there were issues with the feature, the way it managed assignments and unassigned people once they left the table that we didn't really see, with a lower amount of users. So, that being said, we kind of redesigned the architecture on the back end, upgraded our back end architecture from a hosting standpoint as well, and then relaunched it last week. Since then, it's performed much better than it did, prior. And so, we're really excited because I think this feature is essential, and it was kind of like, obviously like ripping a Band-Aid off because it's so essential as we plan to roll out tournament mode, like sit and goes, and then eventually multi-table. Seat assignment is going to be a key part of that, just to prevent any collusion. And so it was something that needed to be done. Obviously, we would have preferred to have done it sooner than later, but we're really happy that we were able to get it out there and live.
Gotcha. So I guess for people on the call who may not know the gameplay as well, or just kind of tuning in to hear about the game, with the assigned seating feature, like let's say I have a friend who wants to play poker with me and we want to go play together, but we, let's say there's this metaverse, right? We can go and enter the metaverse and play. with the assigned seating, are we not able to go and kind of sit at the same table, or how does that work?
That's correct. Yeah. With assigned seating, you get assigned a table randomly within the venue that you enter. There is a chance you could get assigned the same table, but it's unlikely. And yeah, this is mainly just to prevent people from abusing the rewards system. Because once you put an incentive in place based on performance, obviously people are gonna try to exploit it. So it is not ideal because you can't sit next to your friends. But we do have a venue that has just like free play poker and a non-ice poker. That if you do want to play poker in the metaverse with your friends, you can hop in there and play.
Right. No, I don't want to cheat. I'm just asking, I guess, for the purposes of this call here, to answer one of the questions.
That being said, the chat actually brought up a good point. So we do have like one venue where we allow open seating currently, called Diamond Hands City. Basically, Diamond Hands refers to the level 5 wearables. So if you upgrade your wearable 4 times to level 5, it becomes a very flashy kind of golden wearable that's very noticeable, and is kind of like a digital or virtual flex. And so if you own one of these top level wearables, then you're able to access this Diamond Hands City venue, and it's a very opulent 3D venue, and in there you're actually able to play with your friends. So yeah, you can play ice poker with your friends, but you do have to put in a lot of work to earn your way to that status.
Gotcha. All right. Well, Ethan, if you want to jump down, I think we can talk about some of these secondary sales. I guess like one of the data points that we saw just looking at sales data for wearables is, if you take a look, it seems like level 1 or rank 1, rank 5 NFTs, they're actually selling on average for, I guess you would say on average they're selling for released. And then you're actually seeing like rank 2, 3, 4 NFTs selling for like generally higher. Obviously, there's a lot of data points here, but kind of curious to hear your thoughts on that. Like, if you're grinding out to level 5 and you get to the highest level NFT, you're actually not, I guess on average, potentially selling it based on data points that we have, selling it for as much as maybe even a rank 4 or like rank 2. Do you have any kind of thoughts on that kind of secondary sales ecosystem of these NFT wearables?
That's very interesting. As others have called out, yes, this runs through March. I don't know. The additional variable would be the collection. So we do have some, like there's the Genesis collection, the very first one that does more volume and generally at a higher price. But in general, I would say for the same wearable in the same collection, like the level 5 is always going to sell for more than level 4 than the level 3, because a level 4 wearable can be, you earn some experience points, you spend some nice to upgrade it. It's just worth strictly less than the level 5 of that same wearable. So it must be some sort of mix in the data. It's not totally clear from here that some collections, maybe early collections, mid-levels, are selling higher than late collection level 5. I'm not sure.
That makes total sense, and we do not differentiate between the different collections and like when they were minted here. This is just kind of all sales of any of these levels. In our report, we kind of talked about potentially being, that level 2, 3, 4 NFT sales are just less. Generally, we see more sales of level 1 or level 5 NFTs. So it is a small kind of data point sample size for the mid-tier level NFTs compared to those on the end.
Yeah, we've done a ton of volume on OpenSea, as Miles mentioned earlier. Number 1 on Polygon, we look at 30 or 90 days, and about 12,000 ETH in volume on OpenSea, which we took 2.5% of that is a lot of value that's leaving the ecosystem to feed to them, which is why an initiative for this quarter is to have our own marketplace where things are priced. You have the option to price nice, but also that money isn't leaving the ecosystem to OpenSea. And I think why we've seen other large games have their own marketplace, like Axes are tradable on their own marketplace, Splinterland, and others. So I think that will be a big win for us, as a big component of our revenue comes from these secondary sales and the subsequent activation of the wearables.
Right.
Speaking of secondary sales, how do you incentivize players to upgrade instead of selling?
For the upgraded items, typically they will have a price floor that's higher than the previous level. And then also they have a higher bonus variable. And so as you upgrade, the bonus range, which you're randomly assigned, increases. And so you actually earn more rewards for these higher level wearables. I would say those are the two main incentives to upgrade.
And is there any plan to slow down these rewards over time?
At the moment, we recently passed a governance proposal to kind of lower some of the rewards just from a multiplier standpoint. So we've only done this, 2 times before, basically adjusting the multipliers for the leaderboard. The leaderboard is basically broken down into 20 tiers based on your percentile. Percentiles are ranked by net chips. So obviously, if you win a lot more, then you're at the top. If you losing, you're at the bottom and earn less. And so, this change that we recently enacted, actually yesterday at the end of the day, reduces rewards slightly. And so into the future, it's mainly just up to the DAO to decide if we want to reduce these rewards further, just to stabilize kind of the IC ecosystem. But at the moment, we don't really have any plans specifically to raise or reduce the existing rewards.
Will there be an oversaturation of level 5 NFTs or like rank 5 NFTs if that's kind of the case? Because I'm thinking about the typical game inflation narrative, right? Where like the longer you've been playing, it's going to be easier and easier to get level 5 NFTs in theory, because people are going to have more experience, they're going to have more ice that they've earned through their gameplay. And as users continue to grow, daily users continue to rise, things like that, then naturally there's just going to be more and more rank 5 NFTs over time. And then since there's nowhere to go after rank 5, then there's just going to be kind of over time this potential surplus of level 5 NFTs. Have you guys kind of thought about that?
Yeah, so to comment there, like we do still see that the level 5s are right around 10% of the total NFTs in the ecosystem, which is 7 months into launch. So because when new NFTs enter the ecosystem, they enter as level 1. So certainly growth helps us maintain a more healthy balance where there's a ton of potential upgrading left. And then I would add that the progression is long, from delegated player to player owner to perhaps owner of a level 5 item or owner of 2 or 3 level 1s that you're upgrading. And then even if you did upgrade 5 items, there are many people who have 10 items or 20 items and are delegating those out. So I think there's a frequent use case here who might have 10 items, half of which are level 5 or 2 of them are level 5. And even if they upgraded them, they might buy another level 1 and keep upgrading it. So there's really no end to this progression of delegated player owner, stacking wearables as a player owner, guild manager, you're delegating out and growing the size of your guild. So I think that over the very long term, and particularly if growth were slow, that would become more of a concern. But for the time being, there's a ton of this vertical progression and this progression within, we're ultimately different games. There's the game of poker we're playing here, and then within these play and earn economies, there's the game of being a guild manager. And like, if you have below average players in your guild, you're going to earn less than half of someone who has above average players in your guild. So there really is this additional level of gameplay that is guild management too.
So with respect to this vertical progression, where do you guys spend more time at the moment? Is it getting delegated players to actually own an NFT? Or is it by motivating existing NFT owners to actually upgrade in game. What is like the reward structure there, or like where do you spend more time, in motivating the players?
I would say there's not like one or the other what we spend the most time on. Obviously, both are a priority. I think our main priorities that we outlined a bit earlier today are really just stabilizing the IC ecosystem and creating an outstanding gameplay experience. And so obviously part of that is welcoming folks in from delegated player to player owner, and going from player owner to owning multiple wearables and guild owner. I think it really just starts with just improving the game. And right now, as we touched upon, the game is very simple as just a base layer. And once we add in these additional tournament mode, like sit and goes, it should add a lot more incentive, but also add a nice kind of progression for a player that wants to kind of grind these tournaments to either earn their way to a wearable or earn prizes to get to that point a lot faster than just buying one directly if they're skilled. So yeah, I would say it's definitely split between the two, but really it's overarched. It all kind of wraps back into like our objective of just stabilizing the ecosystem and creating a game that's really fun to play.
Right. Ethan, if we want to jump down a slide, no particular question here, but we definitely thought it was really interesting data. One more, Ethan. I think there should be like a bar chart that has some pretty interesting data. Another one. Yes, I think this one. I mean, no particular question from this, but this is definitely pretty insightful. I guess what we saw was over time, we compared the mint price for level 1 NFTs to kind of like immediately flipping the NFTs in a secondary market. Like how much would a player arguably stand to gain? And like with the drop number 1, you kind of see things were priced a little bit lower. I mean, it was a new game at the time. And in some of the more recent drops, and I know this data is kind of ends at the end of March for Q1, but like the more recent drops, of some of which of course were priced in ICE, like drop 9, 10, 11, are a lot closer to the immediate flip price. And I thought that was a great decision, and it kind of incentivizes players to not just go and mint and flip right away, but to actually kind of grind and do and to play the game and try to go and upgrade it. If you're buying it, then you're more likely invested in the ecosystem. Yep. I guess, Ethan, if we want to go down, so yeah, this was pretty interesting data here, but we got some questions about kind of governance and roadmap. So first question I've got is, I know one of the major governance updates in the DAO is very active for Decentral Games. One of the major governance updates that caught my eye was allowing partnerships in the metaverse, advertisements in kind of these ice poker venues. Are you guys, any opportunity for you guys to kind of speak on that, how that is kind of coming along on your end?
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, the partnered ads is just a great initiative. I know it's been a few months since we originally passed the proposal. We've been really just trying to find the right partner that not only find really solid partners to advertise, but also be able to take payment from them and then pay the DAO and ICE to contribute to the burn to earn. So that's kind of been a process, but we're really close to finalizing a deal with a great partner that's crypto native, kind of gaming native, and has experience working with some of these big brands. Really just targeting brands that potentially have a presence in the metaverse, build scenes of Decentraland, but don't necessarily have any way of like providing their scene or their deployment with ongoing users. And so really this just revolves around the fact that we've been able to solve one of the main issues with the metaverse currently, which is just emptiness. We have over 1,000, 1,500 or so concurrence in our venues 24/7, and being able to monetize that traffic in a space that's extremely nascent, is incredibly valuable. And so, yeah, we do expect to announce kind of the more details on that deal initially, in the next week or two. But yeah, finalizing it's pretty. It's on its final stages, and it's been great to also kind of bring on board Matt, our new CMO, to kind of finalize and manage these deals going forward. So yeah, really looking forward to sharing more details on that soon.
Gotcha. And that's kind of in its own way a game sync in itself, right? Because they're going to be doing these deals through the ICE token.
Yeah, exactly. So for now, we thought it would be a great way to just add utility for ICE from an advertiser standpoint, and then just contribute towards the return ratio of the ecosystem. Thought it would be a huge win for the community. I know everyone's pretty excited about this, and it's just kind of value that we're just not capturing at the moment, given our presence and kind of leadership in populating the metaverse.
Sweet.
Do you expect that to affect somehow the growth of users that you currently see?
I don't think it would affect the growth of users too much. It's mainly just putting up, different still or video ads within the venues that the users will be able to see. But I don't think it will negatively impact the user experience nor our user growth.
Speaking of user experience, we've read about the forthcoming mobile version of the game. Could you tell us a couple of words about that? So how that is going to be rolled out, maybe a timeline for it, and how it is going to be different from the desktop version?
Yeah, definitely. So, by being kind of one of the first movers in the metaverse and in Decentraland, there's obviously some constraints from a scalability standpoint. And so we felt that kind of in January or so that, building a mobile first kind of experience that's also accessible on desktop via PWA would be a great way to be able to kind of expand our user base kind of outside of Decentraland and really own the full client experience for the product. And so, yeah, we've been developing it over the last several months. Our head of product, Leo, has put together kind of a phase-by-phase rollout plan. We're currently just in the phase of kind of internal testing within, with the team in QA. The next step will be closed alpha, looking to bring in 50 to 100 community members to test it, daily. Moving into a closed beta, then we're kind of moving towards several hundred community members, and then finally a launch. And so kind of the thing that we've been, discussing more recently in detail is like, obviously we're going to be bringing in users to help test this, without rewards initially. Kind of planning out the launch of this, I think it's really kind of ties back into our discussion earlier about the tournament mode, kind of SNG style gameplay. And so we're really figuring out kind of the best approach for that final, that fourth phase of the rollout, which will include potentially distributing some of these mobile wearables via rewards from a SNG. So exploring kind of just launching that version first before even doing any mobile mints or anything. So yeah, I think, these two game modes really will complement each other really nicely because, Ice Poker, as it stands, is kind of a great tool for user acquisition and growth. But at the same time, it kind of emits, a decent amount of, tokens. Whereas the SNG kind of will be a massive token sink. So we'll actually take in tokens from the community, burn them, while also delivering a really fun, kind of more competitive, skill-based gameplay experience. And then ultimately, SNG will be able to distribute, wearables to the community as prizes. So yeah, I think the two game modes together will complement each other really nicely. And it was always kind of the plan to roll out Ice Poker SNG or Ice Poker tournament mode. We just were kind of delayed a bit from the assigned seating implementation, but now that that's live and stable, we're really excited to dive into this new game mode for both metaverse and mobile. And all metaverse NFTs currently in circulation will be usable with the SNG gameplay as well.
In regards to another one of these governance updates, there was a proposal to go and implement NFT drops using the ICE token instead of ETH, because previously it was all done in ETH, and then this governance proposal got passed, and now it looks like there are these drops when they occur simultaneously, or not simultaneously, I guess they're announced simultaneously, and they occur kind of a couple weeks after each other, but one of them will be done in ETH, and then one of them will be done through ICE tokens. You guys, I think, like long term, and this is also up to the DAO, but just from your guys' perspective, is that something you would like to go and eventually see long term, is a move towards ICE-based mints full time, or do you like this kind of combination where you switch back and forth between ETH and ICE?
I would say from the beginning, it was healthy kind of to switch back and forth, even like prioritizing ETH mints to start. But granted, our main focus right now is stabilizing the ICE ecosystem and the ICE in-game economy. We have been, heavily kind of leaning towards the ICE mints. I think it's just a very powerful tool that the DAO has to kind of stabilize things going forward and respond to market conditions, to be able to employ either one. That being said, our next mint is tomorrow, a collab mint with the Mutant Cartel folks, and that one's in ICE. And I believe the last 2 or so mints have been in ICE. So definitely leaning more towards ICE, just as we end up stabilizing our ecosystem.
Right. The move towards ICE, I think, is again talking about game syncs. We've been kind of talking about that throughout this call, but it is a nice way of implementing new game syncs for ICE that's kind of out there among players to come back into the ecosystem.
Exactly.
We do have some questions here, it looks like, from the community, so I want to make sure that we get to them. I'll just start kind of from bottom to top. So will the DAO infuse funds into the USDC XLP pool if needed? I suppose that might be like a DAO question, but yeah.
Yeah, it looks like that was submitted as a proposal recently. Yeah, I mean, it's really, up to the DAO to decide how to manage LPs. We provide liquidity for both DG and ICE pairs. So far, the LP position for ICE has dropped a bit in terms of total value locked in the pool. And so, yeah, we can absolutely, consider adding to it. At the moment, we haven't really considered that internally, just because, the ICE pool seems to be pretty healthy at the moment, with minimal slippage, just given the fact there's around like 4.5 to $5 million in the pool.
Gotcha. A couple people wanted to know, where is it? I think they wanted to know about whether or not multiple tabling would be allowed, or like multi-tabling would be allowed for poker players. Why it's not allowed now, and then I suppose to add on to that, whether or not it will ever be allowed kind of in the future.
So right now, so far, we haven't allowed it, just given the fact that assigned seating wasn't live, and it welcomes kind of just like this farming gameplay, which we're kind of trying to stray away from. Now that assigned seating is live, and now that we're going to be rolling out tournament mode, obviously there's been kind of dialogue in our Discord to bring back this conversation as a community. And so, yeah, I think Leo, our head of products, spoke about this even at the last roundtable that we hosted, that we are considering kind of opening it up for, multiple accounts playing in Ice Poker SNG, just given the nature of the gameplay, and given the fact that it's not really welcoming to, the farming kind of mentality of gameplay. So yeah, it's absolutely on the radar. Just trying to figure out what the best way would be to implement it, to not, or just mainly just to prevent against abuse.
Right. Cool. So it sounds like it's going to be potentially implemented in the future, but you guys are taking these baby steps to get there to make sure that when it is implemented, it's going to be done in a appropriate manner.
Correct.
Cool. Vix wanted to ask, can you guys touch on how assigned seating in low population realms is effective against check cheaters and colluders? And maybe just because it's a low population realm, there's not a lot of activity compared to some other ones, but I don't know. Do you have any kind of thoughts on this question here?
Yeah, for assigned seating, obviously the implementation that we push live isn't perfect, and there's been talk about actually even reducing the amount of venues, kind of closing down one of our venues just to congregate users kind of more in our 3 other venues out of the 4. But yeah, if you're going into a low populated realm, it still is kind of tough to get paired at the same table because it will assign players to up to 5 tables. But yeah, it is. There are kind of like user experience kind of hurdles in that sense. So yeah, I think in our next iteration of assigned seating, we're thinking about doing it just from the website and having that kind of feed into specific venues or specific tables within venues. So it'll be a much more effective implementation. But that being said, I do think the current implementation does prevent against most abuse, which was much needed at the time.
Right.
Yeah, I wanted to also just comment more broadly on that like this is, you can see from the questions in the chat here that this is a really hot topic, and this is something that ice poker, being a skill-based game, arguably either one of the few or the only actual skill-based play and earn ecosystems that exists right now, is like a huge benefit and selling point. It makes it fun for people to come back, where poker is a little different every day. But it also creates an incentive structure where bad actors can, if they find some workaround what we've developed, multi-accounting, VPN, blog sort of stuff, there is an incentive structure to cheat basically. Whereas there's really no cheating in completing your 12 challenges with an act or something like that. And so this is a constant struggle for us, where we want to make the game more skill-based and say, we're going to reward more and more the people who play poker well and reward less and less the ones who play poorly. Assigned seating was a huge component of that that needed to be rolled out, some updates to the challenges. And then we would love to allow people who have purchased multiple wearables to play on multiple tables, but it just adds to the complexity right now of the problem that we're trying to solve. So I think we can get there. It's not the highest priority one. We need to make sure that the game has high integrity. People are coming in and are playing poker that is legitimately similar to any other poker game and are playing with good actors who don't have any unfair advantage against them. So definitely a top priority for us, that we need this to be skill-based and fair.
Right. I think that's one of the things that kind of come along with choosing poker, right, as your application. Game is very popular, like I mentioned. People do know how to play, but it is skill-based. So in terms of people being good at it, or some people just doing it casually, there is that kind of discrepancy. Cool.
Exactly.
So perhaps, what do you think is going to be the next successful game that is also skill-based and it's not poker?
Ice Poker SNG. Yeah, I think we're really bullish on that. And I think it's something that it's just low-hanging fruit, something that we can actually deliver on really quickly. And yeah, like we touched upon earlier, it's just a great way of just creating a more fun gameplay mode, but also just kind of allowing folks that are good and winning to win their way to ownership, kind of to feed that kind of play, that progression from delegated player to player owner. So yeah, really looking forward to launching that.
Sweet.
Yeah, and I would maybe say it's really hard to do board games or anything that's a solved problem for a computer. So if you did play to earn chess, that's probably going to be tough because it's very easy to cheat with chess, even if you have like another device over here entering them in. Maybe some sort of like Settlers of Catan style game where you are like trading resources or something. It's fairly skill-based and like very dependent on what other individuals do within the game. So not something we're working on, but bullish on the idea that some board games could perhaps be replicated within Play and Earn and NFTs. It also lends itself well to NFTs. If anyone's listening, that's potentially a good idea.
Yeah. Just to kind of close out with some of these remaining ones, when community events, tournaments, or other fun things, they say, Miles, come play in DHC.
In Diamond Hand City. Yeah. Unfortunately, recently I haven't been able to like hop in too much to play ice poker with the community, just given the fact that we're just trying to ship so many parallel items. But yeah, we host community events like almost daily. Our community events manager Murph does a great job of bringing in artists to perform live concerts, as well as even like comedy shows within our venues, and they're streamed kind of on the wall in those venues. And so yeah, if you're looking for community events, like we have a bunch of them lined out on the events page of our website. But yeah, in terms of the actual team hopping in to play in Diamond Hand City, we could definitely do that a bit more often. Yeah.
And then
we've just been swamped.
I would imagine. I'm totally understandable. And the last question for the community, I guess, right now everything is in Decentral Games, and there's in terms of metaverses, there's so many metaverses being built out simultaneously. No one really knows which metaverse is going to be, the winner take all, or like how that's going to work. Any future plans, any future thoughts on maybe like expanding to anything else? I see some people saying other side. That was just kind of this thing I heard recently, right? What are your guys' thoughts on that?
Yeah, it's been a point of discussion for a while. Pretty much since we started DG, is DG going to move to other metaverses? Initially, we weren't going to really because of the requirements for our games. A lot of these metaverses that popped up or virtual worlds that popped up didn't really have any SDK with like custom scripting, with the ability to kind of code like a poker game. For example, a lot of them kind of were more geared towards the drag and drop development experience with not a lot of custom logic. But yeah, more recently, we've seen a lot of them pop up that could potentially host our games. So yeah, we're considering, we're looking at other platforms to expand ice poker. And yeah, one of them that even Ryan is really excited about is the other side. So yeah, just kind of like trying to figure out more information, and really eager to look at their SDK once they release that. Not really sure what the timeline is per se, but once we have that, we can really map out a game plan if appropriate.
Cool. Good stuff.
Yeah. We're waiting for another metaverse to be ready for us.
I like that answer.
To have an open games SDK that we can build on, but then we definitely want to.
Cool. I like the answer. It sounds like there's avenues for growth, whether it's waiting for a metaverse to be ready for Decentral Games, or the mobile app, things like that, and some of these features you guys are working on. So definitely exciting times. It's cool to see kind of daily average users continue to increase. All these good metrics kind of trending in the right direction. So I think we're about to hit the hour here, so I think we can wrap things up. Appreciate you guys calling in, and appreciate everyone on the call kind of following along and asking questions.
Awesome. Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thanks, Ryan. Thanks, Miles.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Thank you.
Take care.